hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special interview today. I have with me my guest. It is Richelle Brady. You might know her better as RB. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you look a little cartoony today. I feel like you don't look the way I'm normally used to seeing you. What's going on with that?
So basically, I know that a lot of people are experiencing with like the pandemic and everything,
Mm-hmm.
not being able to get out to like, you know, get their hair done or like general like looking good for a
Yeah.
camera. So I wanted to start Twitch streaming, so I made this like avatar character model, um, and I use like face tracking software to stream without having to have a camera on. So I just thought it would be kind of fun to do this using the avatar also.
No, that's really neat. So you do a Twitch stream. Do you want to go ahead and plug your channel while we're mentioning it?
Oh yeah, I'm on twitch.tv/stormcasi, Storm and then Kasi. And yeah, I do a lot of Final Fantasy War of the Visions. I'm in the same like team as Prodigy. Like if you've seen him in the NA group, he was one of the Worlds players last time we got to have a Worlds.
Oh, nice.
Other than War of the Visions, I've been playing Hades a lot lately. I'm obsessed with it. And
I love Super Giants games. I think I've only played Transistor, but I really like that one.
oh, Hades, like I've played the other ones and Hades is just like on another level.
Is it? Awesome. I'll try it
It's
out.
so good. And then something that I try to do, but I can't do it weekly just because of like work or if I have like an appointment or something. But on Wednesdays I try to do like Jackbox, so we do like trivia and stuff like that.
Okay.
Just to like play games with people, be kind of like social.
Yeah.
Since social is kind of lacking right now.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, we're happy to have you here. So some people know who you are, others don't. So let's say for someone who's watching this video, they have never met you before or heard of you. You do actually work for Square Enix or Hobby Japan. So if you wouldn't mind, can you give us just like what is your actual official title and position there?
Yeah, so I work for Square Enix America. I work with Hobby Japan.
Okay.
Um,
Are those
and
two separate entities?
yeah, Hobby Japan is the developer of FFTCG.
Okay. And then Square
Um,
Enix is the parent company?
right.
Okay.
So everything that's like designing the cards and getting them produced and stuff like that, the majority of it is Hobby Japan.
Okay.
So I'm at Square Enix America. Um, Internally, my job just like my job role is merchandise coordinator. Aside from that, I'm considered the tabletop games lead, because we have more than just FFTCG.
Yeah.
There's also like Chocobo Party app,
Which I own.
Chocobo Crystal Hunt.
Also own.
I love Crystal Hunt.
I do too. I love the dungeon expansion that looks like a little chocolate bar. Yeah, I think that one's really fun.
Probably my favorite memory of playing Crystal Hunt was in New York Comic Con. But yeah, I played with John Schreiner and Golden Boy. It was like explosive and like just lots of shouting and stuff, and then everyone was coming over like, what are they playing? And then people were buying it just because like they saw us like having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
Kind of funny anecdote is that when I first joined Square Enix, I saw all these boxes of Chocobo Crystal Hunt, and I had never heard of it. I was like, what the hell is this? And why do we have so much of it? And I was explained, oh, it's like this simple go fish kind of game.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? Like, someone really believes in this? And then I played it for the first time, and I was like, oh my god, that someone is me. I believe in it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love those tabletop games. So you're the head over the tabletop division, then I've seen all that stuff on the store. In the past, I didn't know what to refer to you as other than as the community manager. Is that accurate at all, or is it better to just like refer to you as the NA representative? Or
I'm not entitled the community manager, but it's part of my role.
okay,
I wear a lot of hats, even though I don't actually wear hats. Um, a lot of what I do is with the FFTCG community. organizing events when there were events, and then like I write the card of the weeks and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
a lot of what I do is community facing, but there's also a lot of other stuff, so they don't want to call me a community manager.
I gotcha. Is there anyone else you work with on the team, or are you pretty much solely responsible for NA?
In Square Enix America, there's like a sales department that handles a lot of the actual like transactional selling of the game to distributors.
Okay.
I also work with my boss, who a lot of people have seen at events. His name's Kanji Toshiro, but he goes by Romeo. So a lot of times at events, if I'm talking to Romeo, that's my boss.
Okay.
And then I have two other people that are on the merchandise team, but their focus is less on FFTCG.
Gotcha.
And the rest of like Play Arts Kai and stuff like that. All the like lifestyle goods and stuff like that. We did a lot with like the 14 Fan Fest this weekend, for instance.
Yeah.
And so I even do that side too.
Oh, really?
It's just so I do a lot of stuff with like I've done a lot of stuff with 14. I do a lot of stuff with War of the Visions because I'm actually like in that community. They were like, well, you can help us with War of the Visions stuff. I do like a lot of product descriptions, like even though I do a lot of the FFTCGNA stuff, a lot of my day-to-day is also like, oh, there's a new figure or a series of figures that came out, and I'm writing the descriptions for all of them and the text on the packages and stuff like that.
Wow. Wow, I'm glad you said all that, because I thought you were just over the cards, so it sounds like you have a lot of other things you take care of there.
Yeah, no. I mean, with the cards, I do the card of the week. I help with localization. I'm not the only person that does the English loc, and there's a lot of times that like I'll miss something and someone else is like, oh wait, this isn't worded right. But I got involved with that because if you look at some of the earlier sets, a lot of the wording is kind of weird in English, but it's gotten better over time.
Can you speak Japanese?
I cannot speak Japanese. Okay. And what's kind of funny is before working at Square Enix, I worked at Sega.
Oh, okay.
I was an editor on the Yakuza series.
Nice.
But I worked with a translator, so I wrote English dialogue and stuff, and like menu text and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was with a translator, so there was multiple, but I mostly worked with one. But the translators would tell me what something says, and then write new dialogue or whatever.
Yeah. Based
on like their idea of what the feel is supposed to be. Here with Square Enix, with FFTCG, Hobby Japan and Square Enix Europe work with translators for the cards. And then for everything else, there are 4 translators at Square Enix America that I work with.
Okay.
One of them actually got a shout out on the FanFest thing early this morning.
Oh, nice.
A lot of people.
No, not. It's
No. Aimee.
Oh, okay. I've heard the name before. Yeah.
So she's on stage a lot, right?
Yeah.
For like the 14 FanFest stuff. She also does a lot of stuff with FFTCG. So a lot of
nice.
Product announcements and like blogs and stuff like that. Her and then there's 3 other translators on that team work with Kageyama-san and other people at Hobby Japan for translating that, and then I'll like check their text and edit it and stuff like that.
Gotcha. And to clarify, for maybe folks who hadn't heard of him, Kageyama, is he the guy who created the game?
He's the producer, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. No, that's fascinating. I had no idea about all those. So, since we're kind of on that subject already, I know you wanted to talk about shipping and merchandise issues, because right now, we're still in the middle of the pandemic, and,
right.
Opus 13, which we're in the middle of, it took a while to get to North American shores, and I know you said you had some things you wanted to say to folks about that, so please, the floor is yours.
I have noticed like a lot of people seem to think that this is just an FFTCG thing, but we're kind of seeing this across all trading cards, and when I say that, I don't just mean trading card games, trading cards in general, so like baseball cards and stuff like that. non-sports trading cards.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that, because of the stimulus or combined with like they don't have anywhere to go, and I think even the stuff that was going on with the stock market might have attributed to this mentality. Like, oh, I have a bunch of money, I'm just gonna buy up whatever I can, and then I'm gonna sell it later because I'm just gonna make a bunch of money on this money I wouldn't have had before.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's been happening with trading cards. Pokemon is kind of what started it, and it's just seeped into everything else because Pokemon was unavailable so quickly
Yeah.
that people would go to stores and try to buy Pokemon. Oh, we don't have Pokemon. And it's like, okay, what else do you have? From what I've heard from talking to retailers, a lot of them were like, oh, well, we have, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Final Fantasy, and people are like, oh, I know Final Fantasy, like, I'll get that.
Oh,
and it
okay.
just, that actually, it was like that attributed a lot to like the spread of what we're seeing right now, where it's really hard to find product. Because so many people couldn't buy Pokemon and then knew what Final Fantasy was. Because, I mean, like, most people aren't like, if they're going to the store to buy Pokemon, they're not like, well, I guess I'm going to get into Magic the Gathering.
Right.
You know what I mean? The sets are produced so far in advance. Right now, we're actually printing set 15. I know people still refer to it as Opus 15. That's printing. And so this set, a lot of people noticed that I had told people to start pre-ordering it now, which is way earlier than what people are used to.
Right.
Because I wanted to move the date up. We can kind of catch it. If like a lot of people are pre-ordering and the set's still printing, then we can be like, oh, let's print way more because there's this huge increase in demand.
Right.
But the previous sets, like before 15, have all already been made. I mean, like 13 was made last year.
Right.
And 14, I think was like towards the end of last year.
Wow. So I didn't realize they were made that far in advance.
So this was like, they were made before this crazy thing happened with TCGs.
Right.
It wasn't expected to sell out like this so quickly. And a lot of people think that it's like, oh, wait, like, oh, Square Enix just decided to like short the set or something, but we're just producing the same amount that we were for previous ones. And we weren't seeing this selling out so quick. Even like Opus 11 was kind of like sitting there for a year for a lot of retailers where they weren't selling it. And that Final Fantasy VII announcements also helped with that.
Sure.
Because a lot of people were like, oh, there's trading cards. I want Final Fantasy VII characters, and Tifa's on the box of that one.
Yeah.
We saw like Opus 11 sell out really quick after the Final Fantasy VII announcements. And then there's just been like this craze ever since where people are like, what Final Fantasy stuff can I get?
Yeah, well, and that's kind of funny that, Opus 11 boxes have been hard for people to find. I was just like, that's only 2 Opuses ago. How is that so? But
right.
I guess all this stuff came up that, no one was really anticipating, so.
Right.
Well, and then kind of touching more on the shipping issues, too, I know you wanted to kind of say this to the community, is that as much as you wish you were able to give them more direct answers, you don't really have any control over that. Is that correct?
Right. I don't actually get to make decisions about that stuff. I can talk to my boss or the people in Japan that run the game and suggest things. But that's the extent of what I can do. Whatever they say goes. It's not that I'm like, and we're not gonna ship more Final Fantasy TCG or something like that. It's literally just the decision above me, and I have to just go along with it.
So I have to ask you, of course, just it seems like a no-brainer, but do you play the game itself? Do you play the TCG?
Yep. I actually did a lot of gunslinger matches at events.
Oh, nice.
Before, when there were events. I feel bad that I have to keep saying that.
Yeah.
Because I really would like them to be back and like see people again. But yeah, I would usually do gunslinger. And sometimes like I would play in local sometimes. Like when we would do Crystal Caps.
Yeah.
I would go to like different locals, you know, like because I would go there a couple days before it starts to like hash things out with the store that's running it and stuff like that, and drop things off to them. I would like try to find locals in the area
Yeah.
where I could um like participate, and sometimes I wouldn't say who I was and enter, just because it's kind of nice to be able to hear what people think without like an expectation of like a lot of times if they know who I am, then I get kind of bombarded.
I'm sure.
So sometimes it's nice to just be able to like be a player, and then because a lot of people do read or see like the card of the week stuff.
Yeah.
One thing that I was doing when I was going to locals is I would throw in like one of the card of the week cards in my deck.
Nice.
But like they're not out yet, right?
Yeah.
So while we're playing, someone's like, "Oh wait, yeah, I saw the article for that. Wait."
Yeah. How is that in your deck? That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, and then you said that's kind of how your nickname, I guess, because your initials are RB, and you would sign all the card of the week articles that way, and so that's kind of why people started calling you RB.
Yeah, I've been doing my initials the whole time, and even I worked as an illustrator also for a while, and so I will always sign things with my initials. So I did that for card of the week, where I was just signing everything RB, and then people just started calling me RB. I mean, aside of that, is that, you know, I'm transgender, and so I didn't come out until like a year into working on FFTCG.
Okay.
So there were some people that knew that, and were actually using RB just to avoid like saying my dead name.
Right.
But yeah, it just kind of stuck because of the card of the week thing, and everyone started using it.
Yeah, that's fair. So before I forget about this point, because you did mention events, and I'm sure the community would like to know this. Do you have any say whatsoever when events are coming back or any of that stuff, or is that just...
No.
I assumed as much, but I just wanted to get it out there officially.
I agree. Like, so when I say that I don't get to decide this stuff, it's not necessarily that I don't agree with the decisions. I do think that it's too early for events, personally. It's not like there's no events because I think it's too early or something. Right.
I have to ask you about spoilers. You know, Opus 14 will be coming up soon. I don't know. Do you guys always have a set time with spoilers? Do you usually do it like a few months beforehand, or is it just kind of whenever you feel like it?
The card of the week spoilers, about like 2 months before Settle come out. The community spoilers are usually like, we try to do them like a month. Like we try to let people reveal them a month before it's out, or like the start of the month the set comes out. If it's like the set comes out at the end of the month, then it'll be like, you know, like the first of that month or the second of that month or whatever. It's just like the first week of that month they can start revealing them. Typically I just let people like in the community, if they're like, oh, I want to do it, you know, when I'm doing the stream, can I reveal it during that? It's like, yeah, sure. Like it's not that I'm like, okay, you're getting the spoiler and you have to reveal it on this day.
Oh, I gotcha.
Sometimes that cannot work out great because a lot of people are like, oh, I want to reveal it on this day, and everyone's like, oh, I want to do it on this Friday.
Yeah.
And then the community sees like 5 spoilers go up at the same time on Friday or whatever. We do try to let people know, like, oh, there's other people doing it that day. Like, is it possible that you could change it? Like, you do it a different time? A lot of times it's like, oh, well, I mean, I'm doing this stream, I want to show it on the stream. But for the most part, when we've asked people to change it, they do. I just don't want to be too controlling about it, because it's supposed to be sort of just like a nice thing for the community to be able to show these cards. I kind of just let it left up to when people want to do it for the most part. The only times that I've asked people to change was when like everyone was like, I'm doing it on this date, like the exact same date. And I'm like, no, you're not.
Well, I'm sure they appreciate that freedom to just, because I know, again, some people like to reveal it in a YouTube video. Some people will write an article about it. Some will, like you said, reveal it on stream. So I'm sure they appreciate that freedom. So do you have any kind of method to who gets what spoilers, or do you just legit randomly throw them out to the wind and then?
So I have some say, but it's more like I have requests.
Gotcha.
So I request my own card of the weeks. They're
Oh,
not
okay.
necessarily my favorite cards in the set. It's just what I think would be like a good thing to reveal at that time.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, I think this will be like an interesting article, or I really like the art on this card. Like one, as an example with card of the week, I did one on Ovelia
Yeah.
because I really like the art. Arvin in the community had been asking for that for the past like 3 years or whatever. So I was excited for him to get to see it. That was like the biggest thing was that Arvin, who was one of the Worlds players in the first year from North America,
Yeah.
he at Worlds was like bringing it up over and over, and then like we saw sleeves in Japan that were that art, and he was like, "Oh, this is my favorite art. I hope it's on a card. I can't wait for it to be on a card." So like that stuck with me, and I remembered it. And so when I saw that card was coming up, I'm like, okay, this has to be my card of the week because I want Arvin to see it like as soon as I can let him see it. And then for community spoilers, even, like there was an ongoing joke where if there was a Dragoon in the set, I always asked for it to go to Matt Okimoto.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's a good sport about it, but sometimes he was like, when I sent him the card, I'm like, oh, are you excited? And then he's like, yeah, what is it? And then I show him like another like standard unit Dragoon, and he's like, yeah, of course. But he plays it up. Like he has his Dragoon collection and everything. And then something that I've been trying to do with RVA is I usually try to give them a Final Fantasy VI character.
Right.
And then also like Ultros is a big one that
Yeah, I remember that.
If there's an Ultros, I try to make sure that they can see it and give it out because, you know, other than the fact that they all like Final Fantasy VI, John Schreiner was like touting an Ultros deck a while back.
Yeah.
So part of the reason that I like to get him Ultros cards is like, look, like your buddy's a little bit stronger. So some of the choices for cards that I'm giving out are specifically like I know people in the community like certain characters.
Sure.
And so I try to get them like a character that they like, or if like, you know, a player is really into like the fire element, then it's like, oh, like if there's a fire card that I can let you reveal, then I'll try to do that.
Right.
And I ask people like, what's your favorite elements and stuff like that. I am given like a list from Hobby Japan of what are valid for the community.
Oh, okay. So you don't even get to pick. They kind of tell you what you have to give out.
Right. But then sometimes I'll say like, so they'll give me a list that like doesn't have a Dragoon on it, and I'm like, well, what about Matt Okimoto? And then they'll give me a Dragoon also. So it's not that they're like, and you can't request anything else. They'll do it for like special cases where they know that there's some sort of theme to what I'm giving people. But yeah, I don't get to choose like the rarity for the most part.
I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to ask you. Obviously, the legends are the big deal, you know, especially now we got the new multi-element legends. And so I think right now every element has basically one legend for themselves, and then there's the multi-element legends. And it seems like the legends do usually come from Card of the Week or more official sources. Is that something from Hobby Japan? Would you ever consider letting more of the community members spoil the legends, or is that kind of out of your hands?
We try to only let community members spoil legends when it's during an event, and we don't have that going on right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys used to do that during the streams, didn't you? Like at the Crystal Cups, you would.
So a lot of times, like, the player that wins the Crystal Cup or whatever, we'll, like, take them over to the stream area after they get out all of their, like, shouting and, like, and whatever. We'll, like, take them over to the stream area, and we show them the card before everybody else, and we're like, okay, like, let us know, like, let everyone know what you think of the card. We're gonna show it on the stream. And a lot of times, even if it's, like, not a good card, just because they're seeing it first in that moment, they're, like, so hyped up about it. So, yeah, that's why, like, we try to leave, like, Legends and Heroics for event streams and stuff like that. And then other than that, we'll do them in the Card of the Week, or we'll usually have one Legend on posters when we were making them. We haven't in North America been releasing posters for sets either, just because a lot of stores close down, or like people aren't really going physically into a lot of stores. I mean, that'll be a thing when they start up again. But yeah, we try to leave like one legend for the poster. And then a lot of times, like whoever first sees it at their LGS will like take a photo and be like, "Oh my God, look, there's these new cards."
Yeah.
At first, it was just me, and then Kageyama-san really liked like the whole card of the week thing, so then he joined, and then Tim from Europe
Yeah, he's the
also
Europe
joined in
fan, right?
recently. Like going forward right now, we're each doing 2 card of the weeks per set. We don't always pick 2 legends. Sometimes it's like a legend and a hero. And it's literally just like I said. For those, it's just I want to show this card.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not
'Cause I think
necessarily.
Kunshiro
Not
was
like I
one
said.
last time, and she was a hero.
Right, and that was like Tim was the one that showed that one. Was just like this. The art's really cool, and it's just a cool card in general. So he just wanted to show it. But yeah, it's just based on what we think would be fun to show people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's really good stuff about the spoilers. Thank you for that. So, sticking with the business side of thing, because I'm assuming a lot of community members will see this, what can they come to you for? What should they come to you for? Questions you can actually answer versus what can't they come to you for? You know, and just in the sense that, like, you either can't say anything about it because of an NDA or whatever, or that you just have no influence on it anyway, so you just have no answer to give. So, like, if people have questions about what should they come to you for, and then what stuff you just can't really help with.
So the first thing I should say about that is that no one really should come to me directly, but they should go to the official page.
Okay.
But yeah, they should message that page for any questions they have. And they can literally ask anything, and if I can't answer it, I just can't answer it. So even though it's me answering stuff on that page 99% of the time, I would just prefer that it's sent there and not to like my personal page or even like to my Twitch like messages or something, or Twitter or whatever. There was a point where I was openly letting people message me, and I started getting like messages at like 2 in the morning, like while I'm asleep, where they're like, "Hey, I opened a pack and my card was bent," and it's like, okay, you gotta message customer service. Like, but they would like wake me up, like, because I've also turned off like my phone sounds when I go to sleep now. But yeah, I would get like woken up by just like stuff like that, where it's like it is a simple answer, and if you message the official page, like I'll just help you out there and give you the answer. But people were sort of treating it as like they could circumvent the system. So they wouldn't have to reach out to customer support because I'd help them. And it got way too much. I was getting messages like all the time and at all hours. That's basically the answer, is you can ask literally anything. I might not necessarily answer it, but make sure that it's on the official page.
Gotcha. That's the place to go. No, that's great to know. Do you have any control or influence on which cities you put the crystal cups in, or is that kind of above you? And like, is there ways for cities to ask for them? Because it seems like they kind of go to the same region every time, right? Like, so there's always Arizona and then Cali. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, don't be sorry. My role with like crystal cups is that I created them. Like I came up with the idea of them.
Oh, nice.
And when I say that, I mean like the idea of calling them crystal cups, and like the things like giving away deck boxes that have characters on it, and like the play mats with the characters on it and stuff like that. Just because Final Fantasy is that thing where like people are really tied to specific characters. So I thought that would just be a fun thing to have tournaments tied around specific characters.
Yeah.
In the first year of the game, I was traveling around a lot all over the country to like meet with people that were being like really supportive of the game, and a lot of Crystal Cup locations were based on where I saw the most support for like the initial ones. People do reach out to me, and that even like on the NA page, when people say like, "Hey, this is my location and I really want to do a Crystal Cup and we have room for this many people and everything," I actually like save all of that and use it to try and like pitch where locations will be. The thing is, I don't get like final say in where things are.
Gotcha.
And I don't get say in like what the prizes are, or I mean like I get to suggest stuff, but like I don't get the decision, like the final decision on what prizes are or where they're gonna be. It's sort of yes and no. Like I know that's kind of like a weird way to answer it, but like
No, I think
I
I
will
understand.
like
So you do have some
I
influence, but
try.
you're not the one who gets to, write it down in ink or
Right.
whatever.
So like for instance, when we announced the Crystal Cups were going to happen last year,
Hmm.
and a lot of people in the community even know about this because I was talking to them before it. I was actually trying to get other locations to happen, but like just certain things would fall through, or like maybe they didn't have like quite enough player space, or
Yeah.
it was in like a location that like didn't have like a lot of like hotels around it or something.
Mm.
Um, so like all that has to be considered too. The other thing is like our first Crystal Cup in Boston was kind of like a little too over the top expensive, but everyone remembers it as like that was the best Crystal Cup because like we did it in like a ballroom at PAX
Oh
and like
wow.
we had like really nice lighting. I mean, some areas it was a little too dark, but for like photos and stuff like that, there was like really cool lighting and stuff like that. Everything about that one, people were like, "Oh, that's my favorite Crystal Cup." Like, why don't they do them all like that? And it's like, well, we spent way too much money on it,
The
and that
bill
was
is
like
far too high.
right, and that was actually not even like I wish I could take credit for it because people say it's their favorite. And I did start the idea of doing it, but like when I pitched Crystal Cups, the people above me were like, oh, and we can do this and we can do this. And after we did that one, and we did a few that were like a little too expensive. But in the first like round of Crystal Cups, when comparing like at the end of the year, like player attendance and how the stream was and like feedback from like things that any of us heard from the community about it. We actually like just comparing the cost found that like as much as people loved what happened in Boston specifically, it just wasn't like the right ROI, like the return on investment. The Kansas Crystal Cup at Collector's Cash, they go like kind of all out. And they have like a huge space. They're pretty known in Pokemon, like in the Pokemon world. People like really loved that one too when it happened. That first one. I mean, and every time people like going back to Collector's Cash from all over. There's even a joke that the NA champion Sam Prime,
Yeah.
he kept winning events in Kansas. So like people thought he was a Kansas local for a while.
Ha, that's funny.
But he's actually in Florida. Because Collector's Cash, like we didn't have to pay for a venue, and Collector's Cash has a lot of staff, so like we didn't have to pay people to like judge and run the event and stuff. Doing more events like that was just a better ROI, and like we would give them like freebies and stuff. So a lot of stores ended up liking that, and that's why like we do them all at stores now. I mean, I guess I can't talk like too much about it, but there were things that I was hoping for with last year.
Yeah.
And people saw like a little bit of that with we were gonna try to do like those L3 opens. There were a few new locations between the Crystal Cups and the opens. Even though some of them were the same ones that happened in the previous year. My like sort of sneaky goal with doing that was that if there's more places that the people above me see were like a good return on investment, then like my options for suggestions open up wider. And aside from just me or any other Square Enix people physically being there, I was doing like a community contest, trying to get people to like post about when they hold big tournaments or big events. And I was like spotlighting them on the official page, and sending them like some prizes. And that was also helpful for like finding new locations.
Yeah.
Because it's something that I can physically show people above me, like, oh, we could do it here. Look at how good this was. Whereas if I'm just like, I don't want to name a state and then have someone think I'm talking about them, but like, if I just like named a place and they have no frame of reference, I'm just gonna like name a random place that I don't think we've ever done an event, like Montana.
Okay.
If I'm like, hey, we should do a tournament in Montana, there's a big group there, like there's a lot of fans, my boss will be like, "Oh, do you have any pictures?" And it's like, "No, they didn't post pictures."
Oh,
So like,
gotcha.
um,
So that stuff does help when people would post their photos
when
of all the gatherings.
yeah, when people post like, "Oh, we held this event," and they take a bunch of photos and like they explain a lot, I usually like I'll save that and like compile it into a folder, and then when I'm suggesting places for events, I'll use like, "Oh, hey, and there was this place and this is what it looked like and here's all the people that went to it." And that's actually like that's super helpful. So that's why I was trying to do that on my own. Like in the first year I was doing that on my own where I was going to locals and taking photos and stuff like that. But I try to just do that whenever I can. The unfortunate thing right now is that with COVID, a lot of stores have closed down.
Yeah.
So it's almost like hitting a reset when we do get to have events again, where I'm gonna have to like find out all over again, and then like I'm gonna go through that same thing even with stores that we've worked with before, where they're like, where my boss will be like, "Oh, well, are they even still open? And like, what does it look like now?" And stuff like that. Did they move locations? So yeah, I have like say in suggesting, and it definitely helps out when people share. And I love when people message the official page and send like, "Hey, I play at this store," or "I own this store and I want to do events here." That's actually really helpful.
Good to know.
Aside from that, oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying that's good to know that that's helpful.
Oh, yeah. So aside from that, I don't know if this is something that you realized, or I don't know how many people realize this, but the store locator on the website has been broken. A lot of that's to do with like privacy laws that changed a while ago, and the way that we were getting information just doesn't work anymore, and so they've had to like rebuild it from scratch, basically. They being like the Square Enix web team.
Yeah.
Hopefully going to have that fixed pretty soon, from what I hear. There's going to be more of retailers filling out information like, "Oh, I'm a tournament space," and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we'll be able to hopefully send out emails, like mass emails, to anyone who signs up through that.
Nice.
Any retailer that signs up. So it's like a lot of the stuff where like I go into the NA group and I'm like, "No, everybody, Opus 11's still available."
Yeah.
Like that's something that I actually could just do through email once that's a thing, and then anyone who signed up for it will get those emails and see that information. But yeah, it's related to that, where like I'll know that they signed up for, "Oh, I'm a tournament space," and then I can be like, what's your space like? How many people can you have? What's your locals usually like?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Just improving the line of communication with retailers, because right now it's pretty much just me texting people or calling them, and yeah, that can be kind of a lot.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Well, I appreciate all that insight and information to that process. So I have one last question for you about the business side, and maybe this is the most important one, and it's about the future of the game. And I don't know how much input you do or don't have on this, but I know, of course, a lot of people thought when COVID hit, like, "Oh man, is the game going to die?" You know, I'm sure people felt that for maybe other TCGs, but ours, of course, isn't nearly as big as Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Magic. And so just, however you want to respond to this, where do you see the game going? Do you have any input on where the game's going? And, I've been a lifelong Final Fantasy fan. I played my first one, I think, when I was 4 or 5 years old. So I've always been a part of it. But there definitely does feel at times, that Square Enix doesn't really push this game out as much as people wish they did. That's a common joke, is that people will say, "Oh, I play the Final Fantasy trading card game," and folks will say, "Final Fantasy as a trading card game?" So just
Right.
kind of what are your thoughts on like where you'd like to see it, or what you hope for it, or however you want to answer that?
Another quick funny thing about that
Yeah.
is that the Final Fantasy has a trading card game quote was actually something that I was jokingly pushing a lot in the first year of the game.
Oh, really?
Because I joined the company because I was one of those people. Like I said, I was working at Sega, and my boss, my manager at Sega, actually used to work at Square Enix.
Oh, okay.
And we played Final Fantasy TCG. I was getting frustrated at Sega, where I'm like I can't find it, or like, oh, why are things so expensive?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of background in tabletop games, so I had made a bunch of assumptions of what I thought was going on. And then they opened up a position for merchandise coordinator, and when I interviewed, they asked if I had any experience, and I basically said, a lot of people think this is what's happening with the game and why there's problems, but I actually think it's this. And I was explaining what my assumptions were,
Yeah.
and I was right, 100%. So they hired me. Like, yes, Final Fantasy TCG is by Square Enix considered merchandise.
Okay.
And the company's focus is on video games, and I mean
Yeah.
that's not really hidden or whatever. Final Fantasy 14 and like the mobile games are pretty much like
That's the moneymaker right there.
that's the money, right? 14 gets what we saw this weekend. If you were watching
Yeah.
14
And I
Fan
play
Fest.
14 regularly, so
That's based on that's how much money that it makes to justify that kind of marketing.
yeah.
FFTCG like couldn't hope to like reach 14 in terms of like
Sure.
money making. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, like MMOs are just kind of like that.
Yeah.
And even mobile games are just kind of like that.
Yeah.
So there are people that think like, oh, why isn't this getting the same level of marketing as those things do? And I think it should be pretty apparent when you like think about it. It's just based on the size of the thing. But yeah, it's considered merchandise, so it's actually more along the lines of like Player It's Kai and stuff like that. The way that it's viewed.
Yeah.
And so like FFTCG has way more promotion than Player It's Kai.
Yeah.
And like FFTCG is for merchandise, aside from like I would say like 14 merchandise. For similar reasons.
Mm-hmm.
FFTCG as far as merchandise goes is actually like one of the top things, and that's why as far as merchandise goes, it gets a whole lot more marketing than other types of merchandise do.
Gotcha.
It's just people typically compare it to other things the company is doing, and they're like, oh, they don't care about it, but it's really just relative. There's this whole thing of like, I see a lot where people are like, oh, they should do TV commercials for FFTCG. All right, well, you all are complaining in the NA group that you can't find FFTCG right now. How would you feel if there were commercials everywhere telling you to go buy FFTCG? So it would pretty much just be a waste of money to like troll people.
FFTCG, product out now. Warning, product may not actually be in stores.
With like a little carrot, that's like sold out now.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously most people don't realize like a commercial is expensive, and
Yeah.
who are we actually reaching with that, something like Pokemon would get a commercial because they're trying to reach kids that are watching TV and will ask their parents to spend money on Pokemon cards.
Right.
But Final Fantasy, like,
there's no TV show, there's no anime that people watch that, I want to go play the game based off of it. Whereas, yeah, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! Literally the show is there to sell you the card game, so.
Right. And, I see sometimes where people have, like, suggestions like, oh, well, if they just put an ad in a video game, then, like, more people would see it. Well, we actually do put ads in the video games. And Final Fantasy VII Remake, as an example, there was an ad in the box for Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we heard from retailers a lot that, like, people opened up the box and saw the ad and went to the store and bought the Cloud versus Sephiroth deck. And so it actually, like, it is done, and it does do what it's supposed to, where Final Fantasy fans specifically are seeing this stuff. Even aside from, like, physically, like, in the game box, we had, like, the Shadowbringers 2-player deck was on the launcher for 14.
Yeah.
And we have put in Brave Exvius ads for... and Opera Omnia ads for FFTCG. And people see them, and even at Brave Exvius Fan Festa, a lot of people, like, don't realize this that are, like, FFTCG players unless they were there. But it was literally the biggest FFTCG event we've ever held, like, officially.
Wow.
we had 600 people in the FFTCG area at the Rave Exvius event. Where normally our events get like 150 people at most.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. So we had 600 people for Brave Exvius or for FFTCG at the Brave Exvius event.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was on like they knew that there was a Laswell card and they like Laswell, and so they were like, I gotta go try this and play it and get the Laswell card. They saw it on the game when they were playing it, so they're like, oh, I gotta go see what this is about because it was advertised in this. So yeah, there is like a lot of cross promotion, but because Final Fantasy is very niche, I mean, yeah, like yes, Clouds and Smash Brothers, like and Sephiroth, but it's still Final Fantasy is still something where like if you're into it, and you're looking for it.
Right. For me, as a if I may, as a fan of Final Fantasy, like I think it's in this space of it's well known enough and it's been around long enough that most people have at least heard the name. If you say Final Fantasy, oh, I know, that's like a game or something, right? So they know of it. But it also, as much as I wish it was, it's not to the level of like Mario or Nintendo, which even your grandmother knows about that. So yeah, it is very elevated and very wide, but it's not it's not to a Pokemon level. It's not to Nintendo as a brand level kind of thing.
Right. Even like going back to that Smash Brothers thing, a lot of times with like holidays, like pre-COVID obviously, but like with like family gatherings and stuff. I would play like Smash Brothers with other family members, and I would pick Cloud, and like all the kids that were playing would be like, "Who is that? I don't even know what he's from." And I'm like, "I work for the thing that he's from," and they're like, "What? No, you don't. That's a Nintendo game."
That's pretty funny.
I mean, I found out about the game through Kyle McGinty, like from Meta Potion. And so that's the group that I was playing with at first before I was working on it. It's just been a thing. Sometimes it's even funny where like I go to a lot of conventions, right? Because I'm working at them, and people will be like, "Oh my God, Final Fantasy has a trading card game," and then I'll see them the next year or at the next convention or whatever, and then I recognize them. Like I remember, I have like a good memory of people, and like I'll see the same person, and they'll do it again where they're like, "Oh my God, Final Fantasy has a trading card game?"
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I saw you at San Diego Comic-Con, and you said the same thing there. And a lot of times they'd be like, "You remember me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but why are you saying you didn't know it existed?" And they're like, "I just want another promo card." And it's like, yeah, I would give you another promo card. But yeah, I mean, it is a thing. Like, I've shared a lot in the NA group, that the Twitch streamer Unaleska, that she's been like streaming FFTCG lately, like pack openings and stuff. Even like someone like that who's so into it, where like she's trying to get into like the Guinness Book of World Records for like Final Fantasy collection. She didn't realize for a little bit that like it was in North America, like it was available here. And not just her, but like a lot of Final Fantasy fans who are big Final Fantasy fans thought it was like a Japan only thing.
Yeah.
Because it was at first, obviously. And they didn't realize that it came out here. And so there is a level of that where a lot of people who knew what it was didn't know that it came here. And so it just was stuck in their head as like, it's not something I can get here. But like, she's been someone that I've been talking to a lot lately. Or like for the past few months. And that's something that I'm trying to do more of, is like reach out to these like long-time Final Fantasy fans and stuff, and like let them know like, hey, Final Fantasy has a TCG and we sell it here.
Yeah.
Shadowbringers, like that 2-player deck was a big part of that.
Yeah.
Just because there are so many, like I said, there's so many people that play Final Fantasy 14. And so that was something that I actually suggested as, can we do a Shadowbringers 2-player deck and put like husbandos on the cover?
Yeah.
Because if we put, Crystal Exarch and Emmett Cell on the cover of something, people will want to buy it. And that turned out to be the case, because 14 fans bought that so quick.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. And Shadowbringers is such a popular expansion too, so I'm sure they were happy to eat that up. No, that was awesome. Thank you so much for all that information. Is there?
Oh, one thing
Oh,
else that
yes,
I should
please.
actually add to that. Sometimes people say like, why are the 2-player decks like? Why are all the starter decks like 7
Yeah.
and 14?
That's a fair question. I certainly have that frustration too. I won't lie, but I'm sure it's a business answer.
The starter decks are because we want to expand the game, right? Like obviously all the FFTG fans are buying every time they come out, but the purpose of them is to get new people into the game. And the two ways of doing that with Final Fantasy are Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy XIV, because they're like the two current ones.
Right. That's to say, if and when they ever put out 16, I mean, that would be a prime target for a starter deck, whenever that comes out.
Yeah, so like we've done a lot of 7 and 14 decks just because there's so many people in that niche, or in that one's not niche. Like there's so many people in that group that we can reach. And then people say like, oh, like there really needs to be a Final Fantasy V starter deck, and like the amount of Bart's fans is very little.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that we're really like looking at what is popular, and that doesn't mean that every single deck that comes out is going to be 7 and 14.
Sure.
But it's something that we just try to use, is judging like, okay, what video games are selling the best.
Right.
Let's try to base the starter decks off of that, and then you get like your like Final Fantasy dimensions in the booster packs, or like there's tons of like Final Fantasy Tactics and stuff like that where and 6 where like those are like fan favorite games, but they're still kind of like cult favorites.
Right. Well, and again, as a player and as a lifelong Final Fantasy fan, part of me, of course, is like, oh my gosh, another cloud card. Like, how many clouds do we need? But I do understand, it monetarily makes sense. And Square as a company, back in the day when I was growing up in like the 90s, 2000s, they were really cranking those games out. But 15 came out in I think 2016. So now here it is 2021. And again, 16 I don't think has a release date yet. So the only two like active big games they have right now are 14 and the 7 remake. So, it does make sense why they do that.
Right. But yeah, that doesn't mean that there won't be other stuff. It's just trying to jump off of that.
Sure. No, I appreciate you explaining that. Folks, I want to give a big, big thank you to Richelle for coming on and talking about us, all this business side stuff. It's great to get that insight. A lot of it I didn't know. I joined the game kind of near the end of Opus 7. Like Opus 8 was like my first official Opus I was a part of. So I guess I was like a latecomer. So a lot of the stuff I didn't know. So Richelle, thank you so much for being on here, giving your words to me and the community. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or a hello or plug anything on your way out?
No, I don't want anyone to feel like I love them more than someone else.
All right, fair enough. Thank you again so much. If you have any questions or comments, you can, of course, leave them below, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Later.